Hi, this is Aaron Newcomb, and on this episode of Floss Weekly, Guillermo Amaral joins me to talk about Caddy. It's a new lightweight, easy-to-configure web server. You're not going to want to miss it. That's coming up right now on Floss Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly with Aaron Newcomb and Guillermo Amaral. Episode 364, recorded on November 24, 2015. Caddy. Welcome to Floss Weekly, the show where we talk about free Libre open source software. I'm your host for this morning, or for today, whatever time it is where you are. I'm Aaron Newcomb. So welcome to our show. And as always, we have a lovely co-host to join us. And this week it's Guillermo. Guillermo, how are you doing?
Lovely. I'm doing lovely. I look lovely, so it's okay.
We both look lovely. I mean, we have to do this. We have to do this show so early, and I always feel bad saying that because there's people that they have to get up really early and way earlier than this. But this is early for me, so
same here.
Yeah. But we're here. We're live. We're ready to talk. Randall is away. He's off on some cruise someplace. Some great location somewhere. He does these cruises all the time, as you know, if you're a regular watcher, viewer, listener. You know that he does this occasionally, and you get to have a stand-in, and today that stand-in is me. So hopefully he's doing good. Speaking of doing good, we have a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about Caddy. Caddy is a new web server project. Or it's new to me anyway. We'll find out how old it actually is, but it's not Apache, that's for sure. So if it's not Apache, it's new. But we're going to be talking about it today. Guillermo, do you know anything about Caddy?
No, I actually found out about it. I think about a week ago. Somebody mentioned it. So I at least it's making its rounds around my area now. But yeah, I'm excited to learn more and see what it does. What makes it different.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's funny how that happens. For some reason, I don't know what it is, but every time there's a show scheduled, it seems like, shortly before the show, there's talk about whatever the project is that we're going to be talking about, or someone mentions it in casual conversation, and probably they've talked about it a lot in the past, but you just didn't register in your brain because you didn't have it top of mind because you weren't getting ready to do a show. But it seems, for me anyway, that always happens. I'll be getting ready to do a show, and then all of a sudden I'll have this 20-minute conversation about it. It's like, oh yeah, we're doing a show on that next week. You should really tune in and watch. You'll learn a lot. So. Yeah, that's just the way it happens. So, well, let's not waste any time. Let's actually go ahead and bring on our guest. So today we have joining us Matt Holt, and I hope I say this right, Abiola Ibrahim. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right.
Abiola, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Abiola.
Abiola. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot better. Well, great. Well, welcome to the show, Matt and Abiola. So tell us a little bit about Caddy. Why in the world do we need another web server? Matt, let's go with you.
Sure. That's a great question. So I made Caddy originally because I wanted something easier to use, something that made me more productive as a web developer. And I was having kind of a hard time just finding that sweet spot with existing software. So ultimately, it's just to make web developers more productive with just less things getting in the way, less technical things that you have to deal with before you can get your site up and running.
So you wanted to make it easier. Why not? There's lots of web servers out there, though. I mean, Apache, it's kind of complicated to get running, but there's other lightweight web servers out there. Why not just go with one of those?
None of them had quite the feature set I was looking for. I wanted something that could render Markdown files. I wanted something that could use HTTP2 right out of the box. I wanted something that could actually have a good default TLS configuration that scores well, and just meaning that it has the right Cypher suites and everything set up by default. So really just a set of smart defaults, something extensible that I could add more to later, I think is really important.
Great. And how long have you been working on Caddy?
I started Christmas last year, so it's almost its 1 year anniversary or birthday.
Oh, wow. So not very long. So it is new. We were wondering how old it was, but it is very new. Why did you choose the name Caddy, by the way?
That was one of the hardest choices I made about the project, was the name. As programmers, the hardest problem they know, is naming things. The name Caddy has to do with the idea of kind of, well, it's taken from the idea of what you see in, for example, golf. You have an assistant kind of that carries things for you, that organizes your tools for you, and kind of does your odd jobs, and that's what a caddy is. And I think that the name was really fitting for some web server software that just kind of takes care of things for you and does what you need without the hassle.
Great.
And it has kind of a human touch.
It does have a human touch, and I was just wondering, is there a Caddy Shack anywhere in the mix here?
No.
Oh, what? You got to have a Caddy Shack. Come on. You gotta bring that in. There must be some sort of repository somewhere that you can rename the Caddy Shack.
That might or might not be the host name of the website's server virtual machine. So.
That's great. That's great. Let's bring in Abiola too, because I did it again. Abiola. I'm going to say this right.
Yeah.
Abiola,
Yeah.
you're a core contributor, correct?
Yeah.
Great. How long have you been involved in the project?
I think I started around that should be around June, either late May stroke early June. That should be when I started contributing to Caddy. Matt mentioned it in the Go Slack channel then, that is working on a very interesting web server. So I looked at the code and it looks quite straightforward to follow and not a very large project. And he's looking for contributors then actually. So it was pretty easy for me to get into it, and it actually appeals to me because Caddy is for all classifications, starting from a non-programmer to a programmer. Then no matter how geeky you are, you can always tweak it to that level, and no matter how non-geeky you are, you can bring it to that level too. So, and it's pretty lightweight, yeah. So. And the fact that I was able to contribute to it that quickly actually appeals to me a lot. So that's how I started with Caddy. So back then in June, yeah, since then I've been working occasionally. Sometimes I'll have a lot of time, like I can devote a whole weekend to it, but sometimes maybe once in 2 weeks I'll chip in something. Yeah.
Great. You said it was easy to get started. I mean, how easy is it? Maybe as someone like yourself that works on it. I mean,
Okay.
If I didn't know what I was doing and someone said you need to set up a web server, like how long would it take me?
Oh, to set up a web server, Caddy. Okay. I don't want to sound too optimistic here, but in 5 minutes you should have something already.
Really, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow. If you what?
If you already know what a web server is and you want to start it up, yeah. If you have that basic knowledge, 5 minutes is enough for you to get started with Caddy.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that is certainly pretty quick. Hey, Matt, we should mention, what language are you using to write the web server in?
Go. Caddy's written in Go.
Go. Okay, so Go keeps coming up again and again and again on this show with lots of projects. Either they are using Go, or they want to use Go, or they want to learn about Go. It just seems to be really popular right now. Why did you choose Go?
Go makes it fun, first of all. I love coding after some other languages that made it more frustrating to do web development. And so Go is fun, it's easy, and it's a simple language to pick up, and I thought it'd be really a good fit for a web server, because Go is written for server applications. So.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other web servers that you know of that are written in Go?
Yeah, there's a couple. Most web application, I don't know. Are you talking like static file web servers, or like general purpose, or?
Yeah, either actually.
Because a lot of applications that are written in Go are web facing, and so because Go has a built-in web server in the standard library that's production ready, and Caddy uses that as well. But we just have written on top of that a web app that happens to serve static files, and lets the user configure that. So it's a special kind of web application. But yeah, there's others. There's Spark and Algernon, I think is the name of it, and a few other kind of random projects.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about, you could get this up and running in 5 minutes or so, but what would you actually need to get this deployed? I mean, what you need to install a package. Let's say I was setting this up in Ubuntu. Walk me through the steps. How easy is it actually to get going?
Sure. So assuming, like Abiel said, if you have the basic knowledge of a web server, all you have to do is download it from the website and extract the zip file and open your command line and run Caddy, and you should be good to go. You may want to, if you want to customize your site, like serve it on port 80, for example, all you have to do is create what's called a Caddy file, which is the text file that you put with your site. And the first line of it is just the address of the site you want to serve. And then you hit enter and you describe your site. And that's where you customize it, and Caddy's true power and just easiness kind of shines through. But I think you can set the root directory there, and you can set up rewrites and redirects, and you can, if you have a PHP site that you need a proxy to, you can set that up and things like that. But once you have the Caddy file on your file system by your site, you can just run Caddy and be up and running literally in just a minute or two.
And maybe you can take a little step back here. You mentioned a static servers and conventional servers. In which one of those would Caddy fall in?
Caddy's core is a static file server, akin to Apache, Nginx, and Lydie, and others that you've used. So you give it a root directory, and it serves files statically out of there. But Caddy can be extended to have dynamic capabilities. It has powerful templating features if you're into that, and a few other little things through add-ons. But
I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's a general. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a general purpose kind of static file server at its heart.
So it can basically do both, kind of like a light HTTPD.
Mm-hmm.
Did I add an extra T in there? Okay. Sorry. So does it support something like back in you don't look that old, but I'm thinking back in 2000, fast CGI and stuff like that, got really popular. Is there something to support that in your web server?
There is, yeah. Caddy can proxy fast CGI requests to a fast CGI server. So if you're used to setting up, for example, PHP with Nginx, you typically do that with fast CGI, and Caddy is very similar, but much easier. One of the frustrations I had, for example, was setting up PHP sites, and all the tutorials online were all different and all had different security recommendations, and it was kind of a mess. So we took a lot of that pain away with Caddy's fast CGI implementation, and it's just one line in your Caddy file, and it works pretty standard for most things.
Yeah, I totally forgot and didn't mention. Could you just give us a little idea of what fast CGI is, so people who are not really familiar with what CGI and fast CGI are?
Yeah, so the idea of fast CGI is when you get a request over the network, typically it'll spawn a process, and the process communicates with the fast CGI server to give output. So the process will execute some command and some code, and then the the CGI server will pump that response back out to the client over the web. Fast CGI is a faster way to do it because spawning processes per request can be really slow, and so fast CGI typically have like a process manager that's making things faster, basically, and PHP, it's very common to deploy PHP applications this way, although I myself have moved away from PHP lately. So it's just a faster way of serving dynamic sites.
I'm sorry, it's a little cold here today. Maybe you could clarify what other languages your CGI backend supports. I'm guessing anything that can talk to like standard out and has either that or has a fast CGI implementation.
Yeah, anything that talks fast CGI. It can be any generic fast CGI backend, or again, PHP FPM is really common. But Caddy can also reverse proxy to any backend service. It has a general or kind of generic reverse proxy as well. And it can also proxy WebSockets through standard in and standard out of any program, which is cool and inspired from some other programs.
Maybe you could also you did mention that you wanted to make it a little easier to for everybody to work with, right? Or at least that was your main goal with this. Is there any sort of IDE integration set up for something here, like maybe for BIM?
No, I'm not sure that it's needed. I haven't heard requests for it. It's very easy to configure. The syntax of the Caddy file is very intuitive. I haven't had a whole lot of people requesting help creating the file because it's pretty straightforward. It's very well documented.
Would it be worth actually having something like a, I don't know, like a virtual machine, or maybe, I don't know, some easier way to let somebody test drive your web server?
Well, how do you mean? What do you mean by a virtual machine?
Well, there's a lot of applications that require something like a special knowledge to be set up. In this case, for example, a web server is not something that average Joe might know how to set up. They wouldn't know what ports to open up. For example, in Linux, you might need root to have like port 80 and port SSL port. What is it? 443, I think. Open, which aren't available to like user space. So is that something that you might need a virtual machine, maybe a virtual machine image to somebody just to be able to try your web server quickly? Or how are you handling those permissions?
It's a good question. We're still working on making that easier. Right now, we recommend using, on Linux machines, we recommend using a program called setcap that will give Caddy the capability to bind to lower ports. So there are some system admin things that maybe if you're going to run a production web server on a busy site, you should probably take care of. But yeah, that's a great idea. You can we could maybe set up a virtual machine. I think Abiola has a Docker container. There's several Docker containers. I don't know if Abiola wants to talk about how that can help.
Yeah, I'm sure Aaron, who knows a lot about Docker, would probably like to hear if you do have Docker, maybe a Docker implementation for this.
Yeah,
Abiola?
Yeah, actually, yeah. There is a Docker image for Caddy that you can pull. I have one on my own repository on Docker. You can get to registry.docker.com/ okay, Docker pull. Yeah, help yourself /Caddy. That one is straightforward. Then apart from mine, there are quite a number of other images available. So if you check the Caddy GitHub page, you will see the list there. I think there's also one by Joe6, and yeah, there are like 3 or 4 in there that you can pull. So mine is based on a very lightweight Alpine Linux. Then I also pulled Git, so it's quite a little heavier. But there are some there that doesn't include the Git middleware. Those are much lightweight. So I think we have some as small as 8 MB or so. Yep. So there are quite a number of Docker images you can pull to just try Caddy and see what it looks like before trying to do all sorts of things with it yourself.
Yeah, because I am sure that it's going to be super easy, especially if you have it in Go. And I noticed that during your site you have precompiled images for even ARM, for example, if somebody wants to try that in like a Raspberry Pi. So I know it should be fairly simple, but it kind of might scare a lot of people off when they hear server. They think it might be something a lot more complex, right? But just an idea. If you have a little image, they can just download it and run in a VM, and they can play around with it.
Yeah, we'd actually like to take away that whole layer of complexity of having to even run it on the command line. We have some plans in the future so that if it's run, for example, from Windows Explorer, like if you double click the icon, it would open up a browser GUI for you to be able to configure the server there. So things like that we'll get to, but we have more important things before that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. There's also PCBSD. You could also have a little icon for that. Just mentioning. I gotta push the BSD on people sometimes. Maybe you could probably mention how hard was it to get this cross-platform? Now that I already put my foot into that door.
Making Caddy cross-platform was free because it's written in Go. Not totally free. There's a few little nuances, but it's super easy. You can I just cross-compile the binaries on my machine. It takes about 2 minutes to do all the builds for all the platforms, or less, maybe a minute. And that includes zipping them up with all of the resources and assets, like the license file and things like that, to get them on the website. So it kind of comes free by virtue of being a Go application.
And now that I remember, you did mention that this was HTTP 2 ready, right? Or that was your main goal for the project. Maybe you could just give our viewers a little idea of what the difference is between 1 and 2.
Yeah, HTTP 2 is a completely revised HTTP protocol, and it's a lot of the hacks and other best practices involved for HTTP 1 to make it perform better are irrelevant or come for free with HTTP 2. And these implementations of HTTP 2 are very new and are starting to roll out. I think Nginx and Apache both just released theirs recently. And Go standard library will be getting it in Go 1.6, which I think is set to roll out in about February. Caddy's been using the precursor to that, written by Brad Fitzpatrick, and it's a great start. It's a good implementation. It will become more mature with time, but it basically makes your websites faster, and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to turn it on. It just works. It's faster when you have HTTP 2.
You did mention that this was only a year old, right? Is your target having it already production ready soon, or is it already production ready? Can I just take this, install it on my web server, and just host my site off of it?
Yeah, go for it. It's not Caddy's not 1.0 yet, whatever that means. But we're aggressively working for a stable sound 1.0. I've never seen Caddy crash in production. I've never seen it malfunction in a way that is bad, like really bad. And so it's pretty sound. We know of some sites and companies that are using it in production. All of the Gopher Academy websites are like GopherCon and those Go-related websites are using Caddy in production. I'm using it in production. I say give it a shot.
Gogs.io. Yeah. Oh, okay. I just want to chip in that Gogs.io is also using Caddy in production.
That's true.
Okay, so it is.
Yeah.
It does sound like it's already, production ready if you want to put that label on it, right? Which is always a hard label to put on anything, really, because I have a few projects that I've worked on for like 3 years, and I don't think they're production ready yet. So.
I don't know what risk you're willing to take. I have never heard any complaints from people saying that Caddy broke their site in production. Maybe it's because it hasn't received really widespread use yet, but we also don't know of any security vulnerabilities. So, feel free to hammer on it and see what you can do to break it. We'd love to make it better.
Well, I just noticed that Aaron already got his server set up in less than 5 minutes, so that's good.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually, well, you guys were talking. I got it set up and running, and just a test web page up. It seems to be working for me. I don't know if my I'll have to see if Guillermo can get to it.
Yeah. I can see your little message there. I'm hosting
Oh, you
Twit,
got
and
it?
I just got Caddy running. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So you can actually go to this if you're watching live. Just go to www.nukemnet.com/2015, and you should be able to get to the web server. Or I'll leave it up for a few days if you're watching this after the fact or listening to it after the fact. There it is. Ta-da! Yeah, so I just did that while you guys were talking because I was curious to how easy it was to install and get running, and it really is as easy as Matt said. I mean, I really just downloaded the tar file, which was super small. I was expecting a bigger file, but it was super small. And then, yeah, I extracted that, and there's like a README and a file called Caddy, and you just execute that file, and bada bing, bada boom, you're up and running. So I was curious when you said just download the file and run it. I was like, yeah, right, whatever. But actually, no, that was as easy as that. And I just wrote a little web page to test it out. So kudos to you guys. That's great. And is that mostly because of Go, or that makes it that easy?
I'm not brave enough to take the credit for it, so yeah, I would say, yeah, Go is great because these executables are statically compiled, so they run without dependencies on your system. They run like raw on the architecture. They're compiled down to machine code without any external dependencies.
The other thing I noticed on here is that, oops, I just lost the web page. But when I downloaded it, there was some other things that I could pick. I'm just looking at the website now. So, there's Caddy Core that you can pick to download, but then there's, Hugo, for example, IP filter, JSON-P. And so what have you done here? You've packaged up like additional little, I don't know what you would call them. You call them features here, but if I select those and then download, what do I actually get?
So those are add-ons or plugins, and anyone can write these. It's very easy. There's a guide on the repository wiki. But basically, if you want more capabilities out of your web server, you can just check those boxes, and then when you click download, the website does a custom build of Caddy for you and sends you that zip file with those things built into it. So it's still statically linked. It's still free of all dependencies, basically. And so you can extend the functionality of your web server. For example, the Git middleware, or the Git feature, is one of my favorites, and Abiola wrote that. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. But I love it because you can just deploy your site with Git push to a repository, wow, and Caddy will pull and make that live.
Wow, that's awesome. How did you come up with that, Abiola?
Oh, actually, it was Matt said initially. So he created an issue, suggesting the feature. So I was like, this is something that sounds interesting, and this is something I can work on. So I had a chat with him, and I started working on it. So initially, there weren't much details other than pulling the site. So everything from the beginning was actually based off my assumption. So I just tried to view myself as the user and what I would like to get from it. So that's basically how I started with it.
Yeah, that's great. And then I also like the fact that there's an IP filter built in that you can select as well for security, I'm assuming mostly. But so that allows you to add hosts, to block hosts or add hosts right from the get-go. It's there and it's available for you. So that's fantastic as well. Are all of these, are any of these other plugins, let's call them, user-created, user-generated, or are they all just from the core team?
They are all user-contributed.
Really? Wow.
Do not think I have written a single one that's on that page. So
that's fantastic. And then you have a place here also to add yours. Like you can add another one, which is fantastic because that kind of makes me want to click it, right? I mean, in terms of marketing, that's really good because I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to make one too. That's kind of cool. So how easy is it to make one of these? Maybe that's a good question for Abiola.
Yeah, back then, we actually came up with a discussion to start adding add-ons together. So there weren't any instructions initially. So it was our initiative and my initiative initially. But right now it's easier. There are instructions that people can follow. One written by Matt, and there is a simple application written by me, just an LO middleware that you can use to get started. So I'm sure once you have the LO wall there, that's always the starting point for everyone. So it's just a matter of editing what's inside the code, and you have your add-on ready. We have this. We are still confused on the name to choose. Maybe dominantly middleware or add-on, but sometimes we refer to the external ones mainly as add-ons, and we refer to the one in the Caddy core mostly as middlewares. So don't get confused as we go on in the program.
Cool. And there, you mentioned, I forget who mentioned this, the Caddy file. Maybe that was Matt. There's a Caddy file, which I guess is a configuration file. What kind of things would you use that for? What kind of things can you do to configure the server further there?
Yeah, so the Caddy file is used to customize how your site is served. You always start the Caddy file with the address of your site or addresses that you want to serve on. That's the domain name, the port, the scheme, whatever you want to would appear in your browser URL bar. And then after that, you can define things that customize the site. So for example, I love serving sites that don't have file extensions because I think they're kind of ugly and unnecessary a lot of the time. So there's an extension or ext directive that you just say ext space, and then you list the file extensions that you want to make implicit. So then the web server will serve those without you having to type that in the URL bar. So you're really just listing properties of the web server and how you want it to serve your site. You can set up redirects. You can enable markdown rendering or templates. You can turn on directory browsing. You can do all sorts of stuff that you need to do.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. I was looking at the page on the website for the syntax, and it's surprisingly simple in some ways. You know, there's it's not like any other configuration file that I've seen, because you're really just putting in, like, for example, gzip is one of the, you just put gzip instead of saying, like, you know, enable gzip, you know, 1 equals 1 or something like that. I mean, you just put gzip or localhost and then the port name. And I don't know if John can pull up this page so people can see what the syntax looks like, but it's almost stupidly simple, the syntax of the Caddy file. Was that on purpose, or was that just the easiest way for you guys to do it?
Both. Well, let me clarify. So it's definitely on purpose, very deliberate. It is a different syntax than most people are used to, and I've gotten a lot of questions like, why didn't you just use JSON or YAML or TOML? Why didn't you just follow Nginx or Apache config? And the reason is because this file is specifically meant to be made by hand, by humans who, I don't know about you, but I hate dealing with punctuation. I hate dealing with syntactic details when I don't have to. So a lot of this is just space separated. There's very little punctuation. You might use a curly brace. Like, that's how easy this is. And so it's easy to make by hand. It's easy to read. It's very clear. It reduces duplication. There's a blog post about it you can read later if you want. But yeah, the Caddy file is designed to get your site up and running the way you want it within a couple minutes.
You know, it kind of reminds me of the fetchmail.rc file, although not exactly, but, you know, it's more of a descriptive type of a configuration file. You just tell it, I want this, then this happens, and use this to communicate to or talk to this server, which just uses SSL. It's kind of like a typed in. This is a little more clear, but it seems almost as simple.
Yeah, very, just very declarative. Ordering doesn't even really matter. So it's just whatever you put there, whatever comes to your mind, you just dish it out, and you don't have to think about formatting.
Yeah, that's really cool. You mentioned that there's a couple of sites that are using Go now. I mean, what's the coolest thing that you've seen done with Caddy?
The coolest thing I've seen done with Caddy. I've been really, at this point, I've just been really pleased that people are switching to it. And we've seen some fairly popular sites switch, at least in the Go community. I hope that it can go out beyond the Go community, but I know that gogs.io, which is a Git service written in Go, is using it. Like I said, all the Gopher Academy sites are using it. I know that GopherCon, for example, is using it to deploy their site when they just do a git push. And then Caddy will also rebuild their Hugo static site generation. It will run that Hugo command so that not only does it pull the latest files, but it does regenerate the static site using a static site generator. And this all happens on the fly without them having to worry about it. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. What about in terms of performance? I've been doing a little bit of searching for some benchmarks, but not a lot of them have picked up Caddy yet because it's so new. You know, where does it stand in terms of performance compared to other web servers?
That's a loaded question.
I know there's a lot of different ways to measure that, but I mean, you know, if you take the easiest one, like in terms of requests per second or something like that, I mean, where would it,
Sure.
where do you, and of course it depends on the page and the, you know, the configuration and all that, but I mean, where do you think it falls in terms of performance?
So right now, Caddy is compiled and deployed on Go 1.4. This means that it has a stop the world garbage collector, but it also has very high, I think the word is throughput. I might be getting the technical word wrong. What this means is that right now Caddy is very fast for benchmarking. So when I did some benchmarks on my machine, on my MacBook Pro with 8 cores and just an out-of-the-box configuration, and I compared it to a few other web servers, I found that Caddy was competitively fast with Nginx and definitely faster than Apache. Again, for a basic out-of-the-box configuration without you having to really do anything. The only thing I did do was change the number of Nginx worker processes to the same number of cores that Caddy was using, because Caddy's multi-core, of course. And so Caddy performed very well in these benchmarks. And as Go 1.6 comes out, and we probably will switch to building Caddy with Go 1.6, the benchmark may slow down a little bit, but if your site is under constant load for a long time, it will not pause and refuse connections potentially because of Go's improved garbage collector in 1.5 and 1.6. So benchmarks can be a little misleading, as you said, but it's very fast, and I wouldn't worry about it for most sites.
Yeah, I know. I should have mentioned as you were talking, I was searching. You do have that listed under the frequently asked questions on the website as well, for people that want to go out and look at that, which is great. By the way, the website's very helpful. I like the way you've laid this out. I usually not all projects do a good job at this, at laying out their website well and making it helpful for people. And when they do, I always like to compliment people that they've done a good job when they've done their website. So you guys have done a great job. Easy to find things, and just the fact that it's easy to download really, you know, that helps things too. I mean, talking about even the configuration files. I mean, I know I run Apache, and just because that's what I've always run, right? And I've set up a couple of light HTTP servers and things like that. But you know, this is dead simple. If you go in for anyone that hasn't done this or isn't familiar with web servers, you know, if you compare this to Apache, Apache has all these configuration files, and it's all this history, this baggage, if you will, of having to configure your servers in a certain way. And it's nice because it's flexible, but it's bad because it's so complex, and it really is complicated. Have you thought about the flexibility part? I mean, in terms of running multiple sites, for example, with Caddy and configuring those with their own permissions? And I know the answer because I've looked at the Caddy file a little bit. But have you put a lot of thought into that about how people are going to use this to run multiple sites and how to make those sites behave perhaps differently from each other?
Yeah, that's starting to been on my mind lately, especially as in light of some recent events and developments in the shared hosting space. But so Caddy can be used to serve multiple sites. You can set up as many as you want through a single Caddy file, but they all operate under the same user account, and you may want more flexibility than that. We're looking into that for future versions. But I think someday it'll be a good solution for shared hosts at some point if development continues, which I think it will.
Maybe you could just mention what makes Caddy so, let's say, special compared to Apache or Light HTTPD. I think I put the correct amount of T's in that time.
Yeah. Oh.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So Caddy is designed for the user, for you, with the web in mind, is how I like to say it. And so I think you're going to notice a much better experience when you use Caddy. And with changes that are happening right now, and it'll be available within about 8 days, your users, your site visitors are also going to benefit from this. So one thing that is particularly notable right now that's, I think, really important in Caddy's development is the integration of Let's Encrypt, which is a new free automated certificate authority. And this means that Caddy, in about a week or a little over a week, a new release will be coming out so that your sites will be served over HTTPS by default without you having to do anything. And it also renews your certificates for you and takes care of all the SSL cruft that you would have to normally tend to with other web servers.
That's nice. Yeah, I actually having to go through and self-signing your certificates was always a pain. Especially if you got to set up like a dev site and then move that over to a production site. It was never easy. I'm glad it makes that, at least that part, a lot easier. I'm also wondering how big the community is. It's not just you two, right?
No, it's large, or it's growing more than I thought it would. We have a community on Slack of about over 110 users. We have dozens of contributors on GitHub, very active issues and pull request sections. It's a really great community. I've been surprised at how helpful and friendly people are.
That's great. And maybe we should go to Abiola too and see, since you got involved early on, how easy or difficult is it for people to get involved with the project, and what's the best way for them to get involved?
Okay. Getting involved is pretty easy because like I said, the code base is not that large yet. And okay. Caddy is really structured in a way where you can just pick up any small part of the project and contribute to. So if you want to contribute to Caddy right now, all you have to do is just go on, file an issue, create an issue for whatever feature you want to make. So we discuss it a bit, and next thing you can set in your PR. It's that straightforward. And yeah, and we'll review immediately. Immediately we see your pull request, we jump on it and review immediately. We try to approve merge it as soon as possible, so that you be very, very how do I put this? You'll be very, very interested. Yeah, very, very happy and interested to come back and contribute more to the project. So yeah, we have people that just contribute as simple as a single line of code. Some that only edited the documentation, a bit by bit here and there. Some that only run a Go lint on our source code and things like that. We have quite a number of contributors in different ways. So, But for me, then it was mainly Matt that was working on it. Matt and I think Thomas. Though Thomas started working then, so he couldn't really contribute much to the project again. So it was mainly Matt that was there when I started contributing. So and it was easy. But now there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people in there that you can share ideas with, and yeah, it's
Good.
straightforward, I think.
Yeah, good. So we talked a little bit about, one other question too, just relating to Go, and this is for you, Abiola. If I'm new to Go, is this a good project for me to get started on? Because I know there's a lot of people like me who want to get into Go and want to learn Go. Would this be a good one to get started on, or is it a little too complex for a beginner?
No, it's not at all. It's a good one to start with. We have quite a number of contributors that actually started learning Go with Caddy. So we have few. So we are actually there. The community is there to help them get started both with Go and with Caddy. So it's a good thing to start with.
Excellent. So Matt, you mentioned a couple of new features that are coming fairly soon. Is there anything else that we should be looking for in terms of the future, short term or long term, for Caddy?
Yeah, so very short term, within a week or two, again, HTTPS on by default. Super exciting. First time this has been done, thanks to Let's Encrypt and the Acme protocol. And then after that, we're going to look into making Caddy more accessible to non-technical users. And that's going to mean that Caddy will have an API, like a REST API, to update the Caddy file and perform reloads and things like that. And this means that anyone can write an API client or a user-facing software, like a web page or a native GUI app for your platform or whatever, that allows you to configure Caddy remotely or locally, I guess. And so that'll be a really cool possibility. I'm looking forward to that. And then after that, I think we're getting close to 1.0. But yeah, we want to make Caddy very easy to use, very accessible and stable going forward.
That's awesome. That's really cool. We do have a question from the chat room. We always try to get those in whenever we can. User 2242, whoever that might be, asks, does it have regex support?
Viola, you want to answer this one? He knows my feelings about regular expressions.
Matt is pretty scared about regex. I don't know why. The rewrite middle actually supports regex. So that's the only regex support we have for now inside rewrite. So we tend to similar to Apache rewrite, yeah. Sorry, do you get me?
Yeah. Okay, no, I was just wondering if Matt had something to add in.
So like you said, the rewrite middleware has it. We try to avoid regular expressions. We know they're powerful and sometimes they're needed, so a few select places support it. But we're trying to find better ways to configure your site that are easier.
Yeah, cool. One thing that both Guillermo and I noticed, and we were talking about it behind the scenes here, is that you actually support running on Android as well.
Yeah, kind of. So newer
sort
Android
of.
phones, newer Android phones that run on Linux ARM architecture. I've done this with my own phone. You can sideload Caddy onto your Android phone that way and run it. And I've been able to set up a little, actually doing some port forwarding from my router. I was able to actually serve a production website on my phone in a few minutes, which is pretty fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I might have to try that out. I noticed the sideload instructions. If anybody's wondering how to do that, the instructions are on the website. Just go to caddyserver.com and you'll be able to find that. So that's pretty funny. When you go look in the downloads section, I think there's a link there for how to get it running on your phone. Guillermo's reminding me we need to ask about what license you guys are writing this under.
So Caddy's licensed under Apache 2. And so, I mean, I've had it. There's been some discussion lately about proper application of the license, where you have to put the copyright header at the top of all the source files and those kinds of details. And we'll work on that. We'll get that ironed out before 1.0, because we do want it to be usable by large companies who have very strict policies. But yeah, it's Apache 2 licensed.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of ironic, though, that you're using the Apache license for Go or for Caddy?
I mean, I didn't think about that. But sure, it's a great license.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you're looking. I'm glad you didn't not pick it because it was called Apache. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm glad that you picked the license that's right for you instead of we're writing another web server. We're not going to call it Apache.
Yeah.
Let's just we're kind of wrapping up here, so I just got a few more questions. Before I get to those, though, is there anything that we didn't ask you, either of you, that you would want to make sure our audience knows about Caddy?
You covered it pretty good. I can't think of anything too important, except, again, I'm super excited about the up and coming 0.8 version of Caddy that'll be released next week or the week after, with SSL support on by default, because I think it's really important that we encrypt our communications over networks these days. And Caddy will make that possible for everyone without even having to think about it.
Cool. Anything else from your side, Abiola?
Yeah, you can. I would like everybody to check the Caddy blog, and they'll have to realize that the blog is actually handled entirely by Caddy. So the posts are written in Markdown, and Caddy is rendering them on the fly. So it's also using Git in the background. So it's pulling from the latest tag. So once Matt writes a new post and pushes, so anytime there is anytime he pushes to a new tag, so he picks it up and deploys automatically by itself. So no external software needed. Everything rendering Caddy's blog is actually Caddy itself. That's one thing. Okay, there's another. Yeah, that's a cool feature about Git. Another thing another cool feature. Maybe I'm being selfish here because it's Git again. Is that you can actually use webhooks. So it supports GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, and there's a generic format, so you can customize your server to just send that format, and you'll pick it up. So, and your site is deployed. As simple as that. Yeah, I think that's all I can think of in my head right now. So.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. There are two questions that we ask at the end of all of our interviews, and if we don't ask these, we get nasty grams. So I've got to ask these. So here's the first question, and I'll start with Matt. What is your favorite scripting language?
Scripting language. Well, I do a lot with JavaScript, not because it's perfect in every way, but because it's ubiquitous and it's everywhere and it's super useful whether you like it or not. JavaScript is actually kind of cool. So
yeah. I like that. I like that answer. Abiola, how about you? You have a favorite scripting language?
I also go with JavaScript actually, though I always bash JavaScript. But
nice.
The personal, yeah.
Yeah, good. Matt, what's your favorite text editor?
Oh, I've been talking about this lately. I'm using Sublime right now, and I love it because it's so fast. I've been using it for a while and even bought a license because it's so great. Been trying to make the switch to Vim because I hear it's awesome. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, I know. But I think I'm just going to stick with Sublime.
Yeah, I know that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Randall actually did the same thing. I think he's been using Sublime too. Abiola, what about you? Do you have a favorite text editor or editor?
Text editor or IDE as a whole. So if it's text editor, right now I think I'm favoring Vim over Sublime. I used to be with Sublime for a very long time. So in recent times I've switched to Vim. Then for a larger ID, IntelliJ went hands down for me.
Yeah, great. Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you guys both so much for joining us. I know that for my part, I'm thrilled about this, and I hope all of our listeners and viewers go out and check out Caddy as well. Especially since it's so easy to get set up. Like, why not? It takes you 5 minutes. Just go try it. And good luck with all the great things that I know that we'll see from you guys in the future.
Great, thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
All right. So excellent. That was Matt Holt and Abiola Ibrahim for Caddy. Guillermo, what do you think?
Well, I honestly, I find the project really intriguing. I haven't done much Go programming, but I do want to start looking at a few of the features they have listed on their website. Especially, I like that GitHub, that Git push support they have, that Git add-on, I think they call it. So I might want to start playing around with that. But I'll see. Maybe I can make something fun, or probably stash it in a Raspberry Pi and see if we can make something cool with that. Maybe controller robot or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is it's so easy to deploy, and the fact that you can push it out, for me anyway, would make it perfect to run on a platform like Raspberry Pi, because you could stash Raspberry Pis all over the place, and then have them all be doing different things. And when you want to make a change, you just push up whatever you want, and it's up and running. Yeah, so I really like that feature as well, and I like that it's lightweight. That's another good thing for doing maker-y type stuff. The fact that, because I really wouldn't want to run Apache on a Raspberry Pi. You know what I mean? It's just, it's like so complex. I mean, I know you can do it, but most people don't do it. Most people will just use Go natively, or, a lot of people, like I've done Python, you can do a web server in Python pretty easily and build it in as part of your script that you're writing. So I've done that before too, but I may take a look at using Caddy, keep saying Go, using Caddy instead, because it's just so easy, and all of the added features you get that you wouldn't want to necessarily write in a Python script to make the web server function the way you would normally expect, beyond just serving up a blank web page. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. Go ahead.
Especially if you want to make something, compiled down to machine code. You don't want to have like a Java application or something running to control. Let's say if you have like a home automation system and you want to run something like you might want to run something like Caddy as your front end, if you want to call it that, and just have control through that. But I have to look. Maybe through an add-on you can actually start controlling things or executing things on the server end of things. So I don't know. I'll have to look at the code a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, well, maybe it's so easy to write plugins for. Maybe you or I could write the plugin that enables you to do that if you can't do it already. Which is that's another good thing I really like about this, is the fact that it's easy to get involved, and so I don't know. Maybe I'll write a plugin to make something like that happen. I'm looking for a good excuse to write something in Go, and I just haven't found it or the time to do it yet. So maybe this will be it. I don't know. We'll see. Speaking about finding time, we need to find the time to talk about what's coming up next on Floss Weekly. So let's talk about that right now. December 1st, Canoma. I don't know if you know much about Canoma, Guillermo, but it's a hardware platform for prototyping. So it's similar to a lot of the things that you'll see Raspberry Pi and others, although it's a little bit more complete. I got a chance to play with this down at Make headquarters a couple weeks ago. It's got a little screen, LCD screen on it, and it's all written around JavaScript. So if you like JavaScript, this would be a great platform for you to pick up and use as a maker. But it's pretty cool. Canoma was actually bought by Marvell about 5 years ago. If you don't know Marvell, they're a big semiconductor company, big chip manufacturer. And so I'm kind of excited about that. So I'm hoping I'll be back next week to talk about Canoma, because it's really cool. But maybe it'll probably be either me or Guillermo, just because we like to talk about that kind of stuff. On December 8th, we've got Piwik. I'm assuming Piwik or Piwik. It's an open source analytics platform. Nothing to do with Raspberry Pi, by the way. I thought that at first. It doesn't, but it looks like a really cool open source analytics project. So if you're looking to analyze some data, you might want to tune in for that. On December 15th, we've got Tulip or Tulip. I'm not sure how they pronounce it, but it's TULEAP, open source software development and project management tool. And then on December 22nd, we'll be talking about Bridge Designer. I'm excited about this one too because I might use this in my makerspace. But it's a virtual bridge engineering contest for kids. And of course, then you also have the software that you may be familiar with. Maybe you've played a game on your Android phone where you have to build a bridge and construct it, and then the cars or the train goes across and it can't fall down and all that. That's what they use, but they use it to teach engineering to kids. And they have this contest wrapped around it, and it's all virtual. So it's really, really neat. And I'm excited to talk about that. And by the way, speaking of trains going across bridges, that software is built on Rails. Don't know if that's on purpose or not, but I just thought that was interesting that they built it on Rails. So anyway, that's what's coming up. You can always follow us. We are at Floss Weekly on Twitter or plus Floss Weekly on Google+. And we'd love to take your questions, so you can join us live as we're doing the show, both on live.twit.tv if you want to watch. And if you want to participate, you can join the chat. That's irc.twit.tv. Guillermo, anything you want to plug at the end of the show here? What are you working on?
Well, I still have a few videos up. I'm working on another set for this month. If you want to check those out, you can look for me on YouTube, Guillermo Amaral, or just Google my name and the channel should pop up. And you can also follow me on Twitter, which is at GAMARAL. I remembered, good. And I think that's it. I'm not really doing much besides scale next year, but with that can wait. I'll plug that later.
Yeah, hey, maybe I'll make it down for scale. I really should get down there again. It's been a few years.
You should.
I'll just have to see if I can. It's always hard for me to get there. There's always family things going on around that time. But I don't know. Maybe I can free up the time. That's great. As far as I'm concerned, you can follow me. I'm Aaron Newcomb on Google+. That's where I hang out most of the time. Not as active as I used to be there. It's not because I don't like Google+ anymore. It's just because I'm super, super busy working at my day job at NetApp, and then also with Benicia Makerspace. You can follow Benicia Makerspace. It's the local makerspace that I run here in my hometown, and that's beniciamakerspace.org. If you look at the blogs, you'll see some of the things that we've been doing lately. Lots of fun things, and really, really fun group of people to be involved with. They're always coming up with crazy ideas, so you can check out what's going on there as well. And that is it. That wraps it up for this edition of Floss Weekly. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time. We'll see you later.